Hello and welcome to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Agustin Doronilla, who is a doctor and a scientist, an environmental scientist. He's going to tell us all about what he's up to. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good afternoon, Mirella. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, all your studies and what you're working on now?
Okay, well, you know, it's very interesting that you invited me essentially to share about my profession. I've been an environmental scientist. I graduated in 1978. So ever since then, I've spent all these years trying to be a scientist, essentially to look at what are the things, well, what makes life in the environment work, if you like. I'm an ecologist. So maybe I can give a brief introduction what an ecologist does, isn't it? Because essentially ecology is if you look at the word ecology, the word ecology is it means the study of the house. So ecos is the word for home. It's the Greek word for home. So it's understanding how does a home function, if you like. So, you know, for us it's obvious that in a home there's a roof over our heads to protect us from the elements. In a home we need food. So, you know, how does food get into our dinner table? What happens to when we have a wash in the shower? You go to the toilet. You know, what happens to all our human waste, if you like? So all that is part of a home, isn't it? Yep. So the science of ecology is really understanding what are the conditions that make a home for a creature like a human being or all the other creatures that are part of this planet. So, you know, the earth is a home to millions of plants and animals and bacteria and worms and fish, if you like. But it's really trying to understand for each of these living creatures on this planet, there is something that is called home. Yeah. So for me, I specifically study what is the environment, especially environments that cause problems in a home. Like, you know, you look at highly disturbed environments, like in a mining environment where you scrape off, if you like, all the dirt in order to get to the economic minerals, and so you remove all the living layer or the living communities above that. But, you know, I'm specifically interested in how to create the conditions so all the living community can be put back into those highly disturbed environments.
And so you have been doing also Eco1. Can you tell us
about
Eco1?
Yes. I'm a member. I'm part of what's called the technical committee of this organization called Eco1. So Eco1 is an international organization in which scientists from many parts of the world want to have a space or a forum where we can look at some of the challenges in today's world, if you like, environmental challenges, which require understanding and knowledge and different expertise from all sorts of sciences. So like me, I have a particular expertise in chemistry and ecology. You might have someone who is a aquatic scientist, someone who's a physicist, but the basis of why we're trying to work together is to create a space in which we can also focus on dialogue, you know, really also to show that if we try to work in a very holistic manner, we can also provide a response, a positive response, and in some ways also looking at the positive human values that allow us to transcend a lot of differences too. So that's why it's called Eco1. I mean, like I said, eco is the home, but you know, but to have this sense of trying to see the unity among many diverse ideas.
That's right. And even Pope Francis has started to talk to everybody about now becoming more environmentally conscious. Have you done much studies on any of his work?
Yes, actually, it's very interesting. I think, you know, Pope Francis, who's the spiritual leader of the Catholics in the world, has been labeled as the Green Pope because last year, in May last year, he wrote what's called an encyclical. Encyclical is a letter or a document that the Pope writes to the people of the Catholic Church to say, well, this is a teaching to address a specific issue in the world today. So he wrote what's called the encyclical, so the Pope's letter, called Laudato Si. It's Laudato Si is the title of his document, and it's about how essentially the title is from one of Saint Francis. Saint Francis is one of the most loved holy people in the story of Christianity. He's an Italian from the center of Italy, but he's well known because he really spoke a lot about the care for nature, for our planet. He used to say, he called the sun brother, and his famous Italian poem, which is one of the classics of Italian literature, it talks about brother, sun, sister, moon, and Mother Earth, if you like, because he saw that in them these were part of God's beautiful creation. So we go back to Pope Francis, where he said that it's Laudato Si is in praise of God.
Yeah. Beautiful. And he's also doing his bit for nature as well. He's made it his own farm now. He's got his own fruit and veggies.
It's very interesting because it so happened I have just come back from a meeting, an international meeting in Rome, which was based in what's called the summer. It used to be the summer palace of the popes.
In Castel Gandolfo.
In Castel Gandolfo, which is just sort of like 25 kilometers from Rome, so it's in the foothills, where it's a bit nice and cool. And so the summer palace has been there for a long time, if you like. So popes from 1,000 or so years ago used to have their own place there because it's a lot cooler. But I found out when I was there that the Pope had there was the papal farm, if you like.
Yeah, beautiful.
So the papal farm is it's in this big piece of land. It's 50 hectares, so it's a decent farm, and it was a farm that was created by Pope Pius, I think.
Well, we'll have to talk about this farm when we get back. We've got to go to a break now.
Yes.
You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Agustin Doronilla, and he's a scientist, an environmental scientist, and he's talking about what his experience is all about. Welcome back to the program. Can you tell us about this farm, Pope Francis's farm?
Yes, it was actually quite good because it so happened I went up to the town plaza of Castel Gandolfo because I had a meeting with the chairman of EcoOne, you see. So we were talking about possibly organizing a conference of some sort in this part of the world in 2 years' time, you see. So we were just thinking aloud. But then he told me, "Oh, did you know that you can visit the Pope's farm?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't know the Pope had a farm here." And he said, "Yeah, if you just go behind the walls of the Castel Gandolfo, the Pope's summer palace, there's this farm." And so early one morning I went with someone else to the entrance, and we asked, "Well, can we get to know a bit about the farm?" So there's 8 people who work there in the papal farm. So he has I think a herd of cattle. There's 90 cattle, and they produce about 500 liters of milk every day, and so they everything is pretty well organically grown over there. They put a little bit of some slightly they do things in a manner appropriate for an organic farm, and then obviously in farming you also take out nutrients, so you have to replenish the soil in some way, but by and large it's organic.
And he's growing a lot of fruit trees as well.
Yeah, they have a whole orchard. So the Pope, well, the farm supplies the essentially the main diet of the Pope and the workers in the Vatican. So they eat very simply. You know, it's fantastic because we went to their little milk bar, if you like, and so you saw this fresh mozzarella cheese, yogurt that's flavored with fruit of the season. They had the Mediterranean salads. They had chickens, lots of free-range chickens, and apparently the eggs are very popular because they're free-range eggs, and then they have all these incredible cheeses that are made, and so they have 8 farm hands there. And it was interesting because I asked one of the farmhands, well, you know, what's it like working in the Pope's farm? And he said, he's actually second generation. So his father and I think his grandfather also used to work there, but they said that that it was a very nice working environment, and
but the farm hasn't been there for that long, has it? His second generation. Has the farm been there?
Well,
that
the
long?
farm's been there, I think. It was created in the 1930s. It was part of the
so
palace,
it's always been there.
but it's always been there. But then they only
it was only for the diplomats and holy people.
Yeah,
in the
that's
church.
right. Yeah, so you know, because if you like, they were sort of you know, things were a bit different in those days, so they were treated a bit like royalty.
Yeah.
But then this current Pope said 2 years ago, he said, well, you know, let's open up this place a little bit more so that, you know, it's a beautiful place, because it's very much in keeping with him trying to tell the world that let's look at the way we look after the world. So, you know, it's like a wonderful garden. So you know, it so happens the Pope inherited a garden when he became the Pope. So the farm is the Pope's garden.
Yeah.
And so it also allows an income stream for the local town, that tourists can come and benefit from seeing this remarkable. It's a beautiful farm.
And also the Pope went to Mexico as well to speak to some of the indigenous people of the land. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
In fact, that was a very interesting thing that I followed, because I remember the Pope went to Mexico in February. So it so happened he went to the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Yeah.
So this shrine, you know, in Catholicism there are these special places in which people and you know, also the people of the authority of the church have recognized that these are sacred sites, because they attribute that Mary, the mother of Jesus, appeared to and talked to people about you know, faith, if you like. So I found out that the Pope went there and he spoke, and he specifically, aside from if you like, praying to Mary, the mother of Jesus, but also to give us a message about how important it is to value the care that the indigenous people have in looking after the land. So the land and well, the world around them, the natural world, and how he said that, well, indigenous people have been so affected by superpowers even in the past, but also today. But if we do not acknowledge that the care that they have given, then it is a big loss to all of humanity. And this was interesting because it struck me, because what the Pope was saying when he went to the sanctuary of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is incidentally one of the oldest sacred sites in Catholicism, you know, because it's considered that Our Lady appeared in front of the Mexican people through a poor farmer called Juan Diego 500 years ago, and Mary appeared to him to give him a message, to give hope to the Mexican people, because you remember that the Mexicans were conquered by the Spaniards, and it was a very, very, very sad time. So if you like, Christianity was brought there with a sword, because the Mexicans were really subjugated by the Spaniards. So they imposed Christianity on them, and the indigenous people felt that they were being punished, that their gods were being replaced by a ferocious god. But then the whole story, I mean, it's a very my simple explanation, but what happened was Our Lady appeared in front of this poor farmer Juan Diego to say, well, the God, our God, who Jesus represents, is a God of love. So she appeared in front of Juan Diego to give a message to the Catholic bishop at the time, which appeared in the form of his traditional Mexican coat, which is called a tilma, and it had the image of Our Lady with all the symbolism and the cosmology through the sacred plants, if you like. And also, this is one of the things that I'm interested in, is the fact that in the study of what's called ethnobotany, you can see that plants also have a very important cultural and spiritual dimension. So these images talk to the people, to the Mexicans. They understood that Mary was representing a loving God.
All right, we have to go to a break now. You're watching Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich, and stay with us. We'll be back very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Dr. Augustine Doronilla, who is an environmental scientist. Welcome back to the program, Augustine. And can you tell us a little bit about, we were talking about Guadalupe, Our Lady of Guadalupe. What was her message to Juan Diego?
Yes, it was interesting because I'm taking it from the perspective about how, if you like, something that happened that really created an impact on the Mexican people at that time. Because remember, when the Spanish conquerors came, it was a terrible time. A lot of the Mexican, their society was really turned upside down because the Spaniards conquered them. They were effectively slaves, and then, if you like, their religion was essentially dismantled by this conquering power. And so the people were very fearful about, themselves as a culture. But then the impact, the way I see the impact of this appearance of Mary directly to this poor peasant called Juan Diego, was the fact that she spoke to them in a language that they could understand. Because how do you explain something that we consider miraculous, that's not part of normal everyday life? That she spoke to him, and she was dressed in a dress which had all the symbolisms of the real plants and mythical plants, which really have a hidden meaning. So that's not a question of faith, but it's a question of fact, that it were these images that made them understand that she was saying something to them. And effectively, the message that she was saying was that she was the mother of Jesus, who was God, who's the God who could give them hope.
Yeah.
So aside from being completely fearful of the so-called Christian God, they realized that she was giving them this sense of hope from that terrible experience of being slaves. So if you like, literally, this is one of the most spectacular conversions of a people to the Catholic faith. It wasn't because of someone conquering them. I mean, sure, that was the context too, but it was a direct intervention from the Mother of God, so to speak. And so they have the Mexicans, and it's interesting too, because I found out that Guadalupe is the most important sacred site of Christendom. It's the most visited sacred site in the world in terms of the Catholic faith, which is really amazing.
Yeah, I always thought it was Lady Lourdes.
Yeah, no.
But anyway, tell us about Eco One, and also how it's part of the Focolare movement. And tell us about the Focolare movement.
Yes. Well, like I said, Eco One is certainly a grouping of like-minded scientists who really want to give a response and really ponder about some of the challenging issues that face the world today, because we know that we have these very serious environmental problems. But let's take it a step further, because the inspiration of Eco One is the people who started it off were scientists who really have also a faith experience, that they feel that there is a deeper and profound meaning in their lives, which is based on the teachings of Jesus, of Christianity. So one of the things that it's based on is these people from the Focolare movement, which is an international faith-based movement which was born from the Catholic Church, but it really came about from the spirit of a group of people with the founders called Kjær Lubik, who really felt that they had to live the words of Scripture and really make it their lifestyle, if you like, like whatsoever you do to the least, you do to me.
Yes.
And then one of the things that I particularly was struck are the words about this thing about Jesus was saying to his apostles, to his followers, said, "Seek first seek first the kingdom of God and all its justice, and everything else will be given to you." So I think that, if you like, that's also a motto for Eco One, because if you try to understand what the wisdom, the kingdom of God, it's all about God trying to show His plan of love for each one of us. So in other words, nature in itself is an expression of God's love for each one of us, because it provides for everything we need to live, and we should be able to share in the goods of nature with everyone. So it's the justice of God is that we really care for each other. And so you can find in the Focolare movement is really to try to be this expression of God's love, and you do that in a communitarian way, and this reciprocity. So very much as a scientist, it's not about using faith to do science, but then what underpins your role as a scientist is to have that justice of God really being at the service of one another, so that whatever the resources, or if you like, what is in the world around us, is really to be used at the service of each and every person, and not to be used in the service of greed, if you like, or exploiting other people.
Well, it's been wonderful having you on the program, Dr. Augustine. There's a lot more we can talk about with the environment and faith and climate change. So would you like to come again next week?
Oh, I certainly will be very happy to do that, yes.
Oh, that'll be lovely. Well, you've been watching Nat Chat. I hope you enjoyed the program. Our guest today was Dr. Augustine Doronilla, an environmental scientist, and I'm Mirella Rich. We'll see you again next week.